On the Accumulate protocol, a user has the option of assigning a manager keybook to their ADI. When a manager keybook is specified, all transactions need at least one signature to be executed regardless of the M-event authorization scheme required. Manager keybooks have the authority to accept or reject a transaction, but unlike delegates, they aren't able to initiate their own transactions. This makes managed transactions suitable for an off-chain process where some automated system checks to make sure your transaction is valid. You can imagine an application that works kind of like an ATM that may have limits on how much you can withdraw per transaction or how many times you can withdraw per day. Or maybe they work like your bank, which has the ability to flag unusual transactions and send a warning to the user. A manager could also be a real person or department. You can imagine a use case where you have access to a petty cash fund at your company. The account manager, who needs to sign off on all the transactions, may reject any transactions that don't get sent to an approved address. You can also assign a manager to a multi-sig transaction, kind of like an admin who does one final check to make sure everything looks good. Only one manager can be assigned to a transaction, but that manager can also have multiple keys inside multiple key pages. To better illustrate how managed transactions work, we can take a look at the following table. When a manager is not specified by an ADI and M equals 0, then anyone could theoretically execute transactions within your account. There wouldn't be too many applications for this kind of authorization scheme, but you could imagine a scenario where multiple people openly collaborate on a document using only data transactions. Because all transactions incur at least some fee, a bad actor wouldn't have the incentive to spam your group. If a manager is not specified by an ADI and M is greater than 0, then at least one key, either from the key page of the ADI's keybook or from any key page within an authority keybook, is required to execute a transaction. When a manager is specified by an ADI and M is equal to 0, then a manager can execute transactions that are initiated by an ADI. This authorization scheme may be useful for automating recurring payments, like utility bills, or maybe a monthly membership. Finally, when a manager is specified by an ADI and M is greater than 0, then at least one key, either from the key page of the ADI's keybook or from any key page within an authority keybook, is required to initiate a transaction. However, the transaction won't be executed until the manager approves. We can also visualize the process of initiating managed transactions on Accumulate signature chain and executing them on the main chain under different scenarios. We're going to label the ADI's own keybook as main and a manager's keybook as manager. M in this diagram refers to the number of signatures required by each keybook. It's important to note that every main keybook has one embedded signature. So if M main equals 2, then we only need one additional signature to satisfy the M-event requirement. Signatures coming from the main keybook are represented by orange circles, while signatures coming from the manager keybook are blue circles. Red circles are signed transactions, while green circles are executed transactions. In the example illustrated here, transaction 1 requires 2 signatures from key page 3 of its main keybook, and also 2 manager signatures from the manager keybook. While the main keybook signature requirement is satisfied due to one embedded signature and one independent signature, the transaction fails because there are no manager signatures. However, transaction 2 will be executed because it does not specify a manager signature. Transaction 3 has similar requirements as transaction 1. While 2 manager signatures have been provided, the transaction fails because there are no signatures from the main keybook. However, transaction 4 will be executed because it does not specify a signature from the main keybook. And finally, transaction 5 will be executed because it satisfies the signature requirements for both the main and manager keybooks. While the entire process may seem complicated, a user is not required to provide a manager. However, it is relatively easy to set up within the Accumulate wallet, and it's possible to modify the authorization with permission of the manager once they're already set.